I just got back from covering Miami Swim Week, something I've been doing for years now, and I'm going to show you guys my favorite lens to use while covering fashion and runway. At the end of this video, I'll share with you guys a few alternatives as well that you might be interested in, and which lens I would personally upgrade to if I was purchasing a new lens today. This right here is the Canon 70-200 2.8 Legacy lens version 2. It's heavy, it's huge, and it works fantastic for runway. I'm going to break down the features on this lens that make it work so well for runway and rank them in order from least important to most important so you can take them into consideration when purchasing your own lens, especially if it's not this lens. First up, it's stabilized. Now when you're shooting in a media pit, you should already be on a tripod and a fluid head. I can make a different video about that, especially for video. You still want a stabilized lens to remove any micro jitters that may occur from shoddy handwork, or most likely, a massive sound system just rattling both your tripod and you. And this will help remove some of those micro jitters, resulting in smoother, cleaner footage that you don't have to stabilize in post-production. Next up, this lens is sharp, especially when considering that it is in fact a zoom lens. When you're shooting runway, you want to make sure that the designs are crisp, clear, and in focus, and that you can see the edge on them. You don't want that soft cinematic feel that you might get from more of a lifestyle video that you shoot. We're shooting fashion, we're shooting runway. You want to make sure that you can see the product clearly, that you can see the models, that they're defined against the background. This lens helps you accomplish it. It is an older lens. There are sharper lenses out there today, and that's something I would recommend looking into if you're wanting to purchase one today. Third, you want to make sure that you have a lens with a very smooth zoom ring. When you're out there manually adjusting the zoom, you want to be following the model using the focal length, whether it's full body, 3/4 cut, and you have to make sure that you are smoothly zooming in and out, following their walk from the beginning to the end of the runway. Now, if you don't have a smooth zoom ring, it's tight, it's sticky, your footage is going to look terrible because it's just going to be this jerk that's going to take the viewer out of the moment, and they're not going to be able to focus on the model or the designer's looks, and instead they're going to be focused on this jerky footage that's slowly following the model down the runway. You don't want that. You want crisp, clean, smooth footage from the beginning of the model's walk to the end. Lastly, and most importantly, let's talk about focal length. This lens is a 70-200 zoom lens. For the majority of runway situations I find myself in, 70-200 is a perfect focal length to capture the model's walk from beginning to end. And if you're using a prime or wider lens, you're gonna miss 50% of the walk because the model's gonna be too far away to be able to capture any of the detail. So highly recommend using a 70-200 focal length for the majority of situations. Now, there are specific moments when either it's an incredibly short runway, maybe the media pit is smashed up into it, or for example, if the model misses her mark where she's supposed to hit the pose at the end of the runway and she takes a few too many steps, which happens more often than you would expect, and all of a sudden you're not able to capture the proper crop around her because you can't zoom out enough. So there are moments when using a wider lens would be more beneficial, yet for about 80-90% of the runway situations I find myself in, 70-200 is perfect. I do recommend, and this is when we can start talking about alternatives, to always carry a wider zoom lens, something like a 24-70. 24-105 is actually a beautiful focal length for these situations where it's a shorter runway, or the client wants full body at the end of the runway, for example, so you need that maximum wide focal length, or you just want to ensure that you don't miss if the model goes over her mark. Bonus reason why I like this lens is it's a 2.8, which gives incredible background separation, or in situations where for whatever reason the runway is more dimly lit than it should be, it is nice to have the option to drop into 2.8. However, you are risking that you may lose the focus on the model while she's walking, which could result in a soft video. So a lot of times I end up shooting at around f4 to f9 anyways. But if you want a more artistic coverage in terms of background separation, maybe for social media, if you have a secondary shooter that's ensuring that you have everything in focus at f9, maybe you could drop down to 2.8 and have some fun with that. All right, if I was buying a new lens today, let's see what's out there right now. Currently, I'm shooting all my shows on a C70, so there's a Super 35 crop factor there, which means that right now, if I was upgrading, which I'm not going to, but I like the Canon RF 24-105 2.8. That's crazy. L lens, because on my C70 that would have a crop factor of 135 to 150. I think that'd be an interesting focal length where I could cover the majority of runway situations and have some flexibility on the wide end if I run into a situation where the runway is stopping too close to the media pit and I need a wider focal length to ensure that I get the correct coverage of the model. If you're on a budget, it looks like there's a 24 to 105 f4. For runway and fashion, f4, you usually want to be shooting f4 and above to ensure that you get everything within focus. If I was using a full frame camera, then I would hit up the latest RF 70 to 200 2.8 L lens, especially as someone who travels. Oh my god, the new 70 to 200s are compact, they're lightweight, it's beautiful, they're crisp as hell. Again though, we're talking some big bucks here. I bought this guy used on the market. I buy a lot of my gear used on the market. Just be extra careful about checking it out beforehand, maybe dropping it off at a Canon shop afterwards to always ensure that everything is tuned up and sharp as possible. But it's like buying a car. You buy it new, they drive it off the parking lot, it loses 30 to 50% of its value instantaneously. Same thing with lenses, man. Same lens, just previous owner. Just make sure it's well taken care of. Save some money. So yeah, if I was gonna buy a new lens today, I would pick up the 24 to 105 since I'm shooting on a cropped camera. So if I'm shooting full frame, then I would go the classic 70 to 200. I mean, there's a reason why if you show up at any large fashion show, you will see the majority of photographers and videographers shooting on a 70 to 200. Whether it's Canon, Sony, doesn't matter. That is the golden focal length for a reason. But end of day, no matter what brand you shoot, you want a zoom lens that has a smooth operating ring, that has a focal length of roughly 70 to 200, maybe wider in situations. You could find something in like the 24 to 105. You want it to be stabilized to defend you from micro jitters that could come from your hands, too much caffeine after 12 hours of shooting, or the massive sound system that is just shaking the media pit right behind you while you're shooting. And you want to find a lens that is as sharp as possible for doing fashion work. Altogether, that's why I shoot with this 70 to 200 2.8 legacy lens from Canon. Hope I answered you guys' questions. Next up, we're gonna talk about 5 cheap, yet absolutely essential and probably oddly surprising accessories I would never shoot runway without. Neither should you. See you guys in the next video. That's the first video of the day right there.